Broken promises catch up to everyone eventually, and for the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, it's Robbie Williams who is making sure of that. He is seeking $8 million from the Formula One event organizer for the way they handled the 2020 Grand Prix. So, what happened with the Australian Formula One? Could it be the end of the Australian Grand Prix? And is Robbie Williams homeless now? Stay tuned to find out. First up, let me entertain you. If you are too young to know Robbie Williams, he's a pop star. Well, he was a pop star about 20 years ago. And as a pop star, all he wants to do is sing to sold-out crowds and have thousands of fans dancing for him. Is that too much to ask? In 2019, Robbie had a whole tour planned out. It was going to kick off in Australia and then make its way through Europe and America. But fate wasn't too kind to Robbie, and it was the beginning of the end of life as we all know it. He doesn't attract the same massive audiences that he once did, but there are still plenty of people happy to watch him sing. He performed at the 2018 FIFA World Cup opening ceremony and served as a judge on the X Factor. So, he's still got star power. Now, he started the tour again and has already announced shows in Australia, Germany, and Britain. And at the ripe old age of 48, he's still rocking. But it's not all fun and games being a rock star. Occasionally, you have to put your foot down and settle some business. When several of his shows were canceled in 2020, he lost a lot of money. But for most of us, if we don't work, we don't get paid. For big stars like Robbie Williams, if you book him for an event, you're going to pay no matter what. Now he has sued the Australian Grand Prix Corporation for $8 million because of the canceled event. And it wasn't just the cancellation, but the way it was canceled and how close to the event it was. Now, the Australian Grand Prix. Unless you've been living under a rock, then you'll know that we've been going through a pandemic these last few years. Back in 2019 and early 2020, it was hard for anyone to imagine how bad it was going to get. The first case was recorded in November 2019 in China. In December, the first wave of people was infected, and by the end of the month, China started giving public health announcements. Then in January, the first cases were reported in Europe, the United States, and many parts of Asia. On March the 12th, just 3 days before the Australian Grand Prix was scheduled to start, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic. Many different sporting events around the world were either canceled or postponed, but the organizers of the Australian Grand Prix were reluctant to do so. They had the option to ban spectators, which is what had happened in Bahrain for the previous race, but decided against it. That's because a Grand Prix is big money. The Australian organizers pay $35 million a year just to be a part of the calendar, but on the same day that the pandemic was declared, a member of the McLaren team tested positive for COVID-19. It was the day of the first practice session and just hours before cars would be out of the track when the event was canceled. Part of the reason was that only 3 teams were willing to compete, even if the race did go ahead. Fans and F1 personnel were furious with the late cancellation and demanded their money back. And for the artists who were booked to perform, they wanted their money too. Next, the case. It's not like Robbie hasn't been paid anything for 2020. In fact, his payday is more than most of us will earn in 30 years. He already received $1.94 million for the concert, but the touring company that represent him wanted even more. They are asking for around $8 million for cancellation fees and additional costs. So what does this mean for the Australian Grand Prix Corporation? The 2022 Australian Grand Prix was a major hit. It had a record attendance of over 400,000 people, as fans were desperate to see the F1 cars at Albert Park after 2 years of canceled events. The CEO of the organizing company said that it would kickstart Melbourne's mojo after all the disruptions during the COVID pandemic. The race has been held in Melbourne since 1996 after a big investment from the state government. The audience for the event has been slowly falling since the early 2000s up until this year, and it has been confirmed that Netflix's Drive to Survive was a big factor in the recent resurgence. Now that the organizers are enjoying higher revenue from the crowd and advertising money, it was a good time for World Touring Melbourne to claim some of their money back. The Australian Grand Prix was set to be the launch of a world tour for the artist, who included Robbie Williams and Miley Cyrus. According to their website, some of the money raised was going to be sent to the Bushfire Relief Fund to help the bushfire disaster in Australia at the time. But as we know, that wasn't meant to be. The event was canceled just 3 days prior, which left a lot of people in sticky situations. People were not happy, and they demanded money. And so did Robbie. Coming up next, what does a CGI monkey have to do with Robbie Williams' new biographical film? And how is it possible that he might be homeless? Don't go anywhere to find out. Maybe he needs the money. Williams has said that he and his family don't have anywhere to live after he decided to sell all their properties. Could the pop superstar really be homeless? How much financial trouble is he in? In an interview, Robbie said that they are still trying to find a place for their family to live. Part of the problem is his busy schedule. Williams has 4 kids with his wife Ada, and being a pop star isn't the best lifestyle for children. Because he's traveling around all the time, he doesn't get much time with the kids. But if they decide to homeschool them, then it could give them different problems. Nobody wants their kids to feel left out, and nobody wants to spend too much time away from their kids. That's why he has sold all of his properties recently and is still trying to find the right balance between work and family time. and it looks like he recently found a place in the United States. He forked out a massive $50 million for a house in Los Angeles. The house is a European style known as the Fairing Estate and covers around 2 acres. It has a bar, a tennis court, a saltwater pool, a sauna, and a fitness center. Why would you ever leave the house? So how big a dent did that put in Robbie's wallet? Well, according to recent figures, he is still worth £195 million, so he probably has nothing to worry about. He got the money to buy his LA mansion from selling his previous house to Drake for $75 million. Next, monkeying around. Pop stars love themselves, and Robbie is no different. He is currently working on a biographical movie that will cover his rise to fame and his later life. Robbie rose to fame at the young age of 16 when he was a singer of the boy band Take That. The band had dozens of chart-topping songs and was internationally successful. They sold over 14 million albums in the UK alone. But 5 years in, Robbie decided that he'd had enough and went his own way. The band felt that he wasn't pulling his weight and wanted him to commit more, but Robbie wasn't interested. After going solo, he had immediate success and went on to sign a $100 million deal with the record label EMI. He also had a serious drug problem that continued for years. It was Elton John who took him to a rehabilitation center and convinced him to get help. Now the wild ride of Robbie's life is being made into a movie titled Better Man. It is being directed by Michael Gracie, who also directed the blockbuster The Greatest Showman. Robbie will be re-recording many of his famous hits just for the movie, and Gracie is hoping to do something really original. How original? Well, apparently Robbie will be portrayed by a CGI monkey in the movie. Now that's bananas. What do you think about Robbie's lawsuit? Is it fair for the Australian Grand Prix to have to pay him more? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.